So, welcome all to our installation. This has been a work that's been ongoing for a long, long time, but I'm going to hand you over directly to Maggie, who is from our board, and she's going to welcome you all officially to our launch. Thank you.
Hello everybody. On behalf of the Board of Clarehaven Service, I firstly want to warmly congratulate Siobhan and staff on bringing about this wonderful initiative. This is not the first venture into the artistic world by Clarehaven, and I certainly hope that it won't be the last. The reality of some types of human experience are almost inexpressible using our normal modes of communication. Yes, we can use words and numbers to describe situations and analyse circumstances. However, when it comes to the lived reality of these experiences, those means of communication fail us. That is where art and artists come in. Artistic expression enables us to engage with these experiences in a way that goes beyond words and that speaks to a level of our understanding that is deep-rooted and intuitive. Gender-based domestic violence is one of those realities, one of those lived experiences. We must continue to deal with the facts and figures of this issue. However, using other forms of expression to engage with the heart of the experience and to help communicate that experience to society in general is also critical. It is necessary so that the reality of those who go through the trauma of domestic violence becomes embedded in society's consciousness in a real way and speaks to our spirit as a people and a society. Our heartfelt thanks and our admiration go to the artists who have created this installation. It is wonderful that you would turn your talents to a cause such as ours, and we trust that you yourselves have gained much from your own creative journey. We are blessed to be able to accommodate the exhibition in this fine new facility brought about by the work and foresight of previous and present boards. We are also honoured to have a well-known and well-loved personality, Rachel, here this afternoon to launch it. We hope that the exhibition is seen by and inspires many to engage with the ongoing scourge of domestic violence in Ireland now and into the future. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Siobhan and her staff for her Trojan work for the last since the pandemic, because it hasn't been easy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maggie, and very poignant and sincere words, because we are standing on the shoulders of our previous board members and our founders, and we are only carrying on their vision and their work, and we intend to do so well into the future, because unfortunately we know that domestic abuse is going to be brought with us into the future. Just as an aside, can I ask the people who are zooming in to be sure and mute, because it is kind of interfering a little bit if you come off mute. I know it can be a little bit awkward, but if you wouldn't mind, that would be very helpful. I'm going to now call upon Felicity to read to you. As Maggie said, we have done work within the arts sphere before, and last year the Northwest Clare Writers' Circle. So Rachel English also launched this book last year from the Northwest Clare Writers' Circle, and they very kindly contributed the proceeds to ourselves. But there's also a very strong, powerful story in it about the experience of domestic abuse. But Felicity is going to read from her own piece in it.
Thank you very much. It's a great privilege to come here. And so this is just an excerpt from 2020 Knockdown. And there it was again, that thought. Mary Rose poured another coffee. She took a deep breath and allowed it into her head. Would she leave him? If she left him, she was going to do what he believed from day one, walk out. Just like his mother had done, desert him. She would be fulfilling his prophecy. She didn't love him enough to last the course. She shook her head. No, she couldn't leave him. Underneath it all, he was just fearful that he'd lose her and the boys. He was, after all, a good dad, and he loved his sons dearly. Or was it always going to end with her departure? What other choices did she have? Last night was the game changer. The whole right side of her body throbbed. It was battered and bruised. The boys had witnessed everything, and Chris hadn't cared. Another tear trickled. "Ma, please help me," she whispered. Mary Rose had called Clare Haven during the week, and for the first time ever said out loud to another human being that things just weren't as they should be. The woman had been so kind and understanding, and said that while it was a very tough decision to make, they had lots of good luck and happy ending stories through their doors over the years. The kind voice on the other end of the phone really understood just how much she loved her husband. She even said that sometimes when they are left with only themselves to blame, that they seek help and turn their lives around. Enabling him wasn't helping either of them. Mary Rose hadn't heard that terminology before. She Googled it and felt her mind expanding. I can't do this. I can't leave him. I don't have the courage. I'll falter. The fear she'd seen in her boy's eyes came into her mind. What effect would it all have on them? And how much worse could things get? Mary Rose resolved that she had to do it for them. She would do it for them. Once during one of their fights, she had told him to leave, get his stuff and go. He'd gone upstairs, she'd thought, to pack, but came down a short time later as if nothing had happened, all smiles and up for the crack. I mean it, she said. We can't go on like this. Nobody's leaving, he said very calmly. This is our life and nobody gets out of here alive. It had frightened her more than all the shouting. From day one, he said that she would leave him, and here she was, doing just that. As she finished off her now cold coffee, she turned the radio on at a low volume. Their song was playing, Perfect Day. Oh, how could she leave him? This was a sign, their song. Nothing was a coincidence, everything for a reason. She'd stay. She'd appeal to him that something needed to change, that the boys deserved to be reared right. But she knew. Short of standing on her head, she had tried it this way, that way, every way. The song started into the last verse that she never seemed to hear before. You're going to reap just what you sow. 4 times Lou repeated it. How could she not have noticed it? The anxiety exploded in her solar plexus, shot down her arms and legs. She held herself with 2 palms placed flat on the table, her breathing shallow and panicked. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm reaping what I've sown. With this clarity, Mary Rose knew no one was going to swoop in and save the day. For the boys' sake, she needed to be the hero, to keep them hanging on. There was a choice. There was only one option. They were leaving. Thank you.
So we're going to call upon Rachel, the first Rachel, because we've got 2 Rachels. But this whole idea for this exhibition installation, which I hope you will all go and spend time looking at and exploring and experiencing, came. I first spoke out loud about it in Sarah Malone's kitchen back in 2019. And then it went away with COVID. And then I again raised it with Paul at the back there about an idea that I had and a space that I had. And he went away and put his creative hat on and brought on board the amazing Rachel McManus, who's going to speak to you now about the process of putting together this installation and turning a little nugget over lunch with Sarah into an incredible piece, which I really do hope that you all spend time with. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Siobhan. Hi, everyone. So I'm Rachel McManus, and I am one of the 2 project managers responsible for the installation, and the second project manager is on camera today, Paul, who's behind you there. But I am speaking for us both. So Paul first got in touch with me, as Siobhan says, back in February of this year to let me know about this idea he'd had with Siobhan. So I want to read out to you these words from the initial brief that Siobhan sent us, which really resonated with me and kind of were my starting point for the installation. So the brief was, domestic abuse is not a newspaper story or a TV news bulletin. It is not something that happens to those kinds of people or to other people. It is not something that malicious women make up to punish an ex or get a free house or benefits. It's something that happened to you, to someone you love, to someone you know, to someone you meet daily. It is happening now, and our societal structures and our systems enable it and allow it and encourage it. And those words really struck home with me. And it was the ordinariness of what she was describing, the normalness of domestic abuse that really struck me as so compelling and so awful, that this is just such a normal, acceptable thing that happens so much. It just seemed so wrong. So as artists and creatives, we wanted to use the skill sets we have to set out these facts and the information that surrounds domestic abuse in a different way. We wanted to use the power of art to get the message across in a way that people will understand and remember, and maybe take home with them in a different way than if they were just looking up these facts online, for example. So just to give you some background, part of the research that we did included working with the Clare Haven Services team. We set up a lot of Zoom meetings with them, and the conversations we had with the team ended up being the basis for pretty much all of the ideas you'll see upstairs in the show. Every time we spoke with the team, we would come away from the meetings overwhelmed by what we would have learned and what they would have told us. It was just so much information. So we realized that the reaction we were having is probably what your standard public will have when they're confronted with the complexities of domestic abuse. I think it gave me more of an understanding why people don't understand or don't really want to understand about how domestic abuse happens and what goes on, because the sheer scale of the problem, sometimes I think people just don't want to deal. And so our challenge was, how do we reinterpret this information that we're learning into a creative, multi-sensory experience that people will understand and be artistically inspired by also, and emotionally impacted by, especially emotionally impacted by, because that's what people will remember. So, we realized that the people who will hopefully come to see the installation will likely be going into that installation the same as we were going into those Zoom meetings, unaware of the realities of domestic abuse today. So we decided we would highlight some of the elements of what we learned that we felt would best educate and open people's eyes to the reality. Because it's just not possible to illustrate every single element of the complexities of domestic abuse, who it affects and how it affects those people. So we decided we would try to highlight some of the commonalities that we learned many people will experience through their exposure to domestic abuse. And I say that in those words because it's not just the mother of the family who is the partner of the person who's the abuser that gets affected. It's their family, it's the children, it's the surrounding friends and family. There's a circle that goes out from that one person. And for that reason, we thought we would sort of try to hone in on certain areas that would strike a chord with people. So for example, we chose to try to show what experiencing domestic abuse is like through the eyes of a child who might be living in a home where domestic abuse happens. And another scenario we tried to show you was what sustained verbal abuse will do to someone who lives in a situation where they're being abused verbally for years and years. Another one was we've devoted a room to the reasons why someone just doesn't get up and leave an abusive relationship, and why it's not as simple as just upping and leaving. Another room deals with the endless red tape that will surround a woman who tries to leave an abusive relationship as she's made her decision to leave, and then all these other barriers come up in her way when she tries to negotiate that path of leaving. So another thing that's really important that we wanted to highlight is showing that the resilience and bravery of women who stay functioning in an abusive relationship. We felt like it's not fair to just portray these people as victims. They're survivors. They're people who actually manage to keep going in these incredibly tough scenarios. So we've included a room of hope to remind people of the incredible work that Clare Haven do daily. 24 hours a day, they're there for people who need them, have done before, and the legacy of what they continue to do. And that room is very important as well, because there are ways for people to access help if they need to. I just want to finish by saying it's been a serious privilege and honour, and I don't say those words lightly, to work on this project. And I think I can speak for the fabulous team of artists and technicians who helped Paul and me put this together. And we just want to say thank you to all of the Clare Haven staff, who are amazing people and do amazing work. And all the people who helped us put the exhibition together, all the shops who lent us dresses, all the people who came on board and helped us out. There's a huge amount of people, and they're all listed on the information sheet, and just want to say thanks to them again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It was incredible to work with the team, I have to say, and I just was kind of a fly on the wall looking in every now and then, and to watch it evolve was quite amazing. And I suppose one of the people at the heart of that, as well as Rachel and Paul, was Michelle. Michelle is one of the artists, and she's going to speak not for all the artists, but she's going to, express what it was like for her, and we hope that it echoes the voices of the other artists who aren't here to speak today.
Thank you, Siobhan. Madam Speaker, guest speakers and assembled guests, and to those who may be watching in a wider capacity. It is a privilege for me to stand here today as the artist representative for this very special exhibition for Clare Haven. I'm a recent graduate from the Limerick School of Art and Design TUS. I graduated from the Sculpture and Combined Media Department, who I would like to pay homage to here today for recommending me for this work. I would like to thank Rachel and Paul for giving me this opportunity and for putting their trust in me, this being my first group exhibition outside of university. As part of my research for this very special project, I read a stunning book by the author Yi-Fu Tuan called Space and Place. In his book he writes, I quote, "A mother is recognized by the child as its essential shelter and dependable source of physical and psychological comfort. A strange world holds little fear for a young child, provided his mother is nearby, for she is his familiar environment and haven." This resonated with me in relation to Clare Haven and to all refuge centres across the globe. It gave me personally the sense that no matter where the mother is, the child is fundamentally at ease and comfort and contentment. Behind closed doors, the hidden truths is a reality that many of us are oblivious to, or we turn a blind eye to. It is my personal belief as artists that we have a responsibility and an ethical duty to enhance awareness of social and political views on difficult subjects such as domestic violence within our communities. We must try to understand more. We need to stop turning our heads the other way. It's time to change our culture and break down the economic barriers that prevent women from leaving the abuser, so that we can save more lives from this abhorrent crime. My face is the face of your neighbour, your mother, your daughter, your sister, your aunt, your niece, your friend, your colleague, and so on. To finish on a quote from the president of TUIS during his speech at my conferring ceremony recently, he encouraged us to get our facts right, to do the research, to be bold, and to open our mouths. Thank you.
Again, I can only say thank you to Michelle for, again, a wonderful contribution to represent the voices of your colleagues. And it was, as I said, again, amazing to watch them work. So without our last speaker, before you get to go upstairs and see what we're all talking about and we're all so proud of, it's like having a baby and not letting you see the baby, but we just keep on talking about how many toes and fingers they have, because this is really like 11 months gestation. But I'm going to invite Rachel English, who's very kindly agreed to launch the exhibition for us. Rachel is a local Clare woman, I believe. And she from Shannon.
I was at school with Michelle.
Oh, small world. You never get away from your past, no matter where you are.
Not around here, no.
And she launched, as I said, the book last year, or was involved with the book last year, which supported our work that Felicity's group did, and is kind to support our work again today. So I'll invite her to the floor. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Yvonne. Thank you. Thanks very much, Yvonne, and good afternoon, stroke, I suppose almost good evening at this stage. It is an honour and a privilege, genuinely so, and like the other Rachel said, those aren't words that I use lightly, to have any involvement or any association with the fantastic work of Clare Haven. And also, it is a genuine privilege to be here at the opening of this exhibition, which is thought-provoking, but which is incredibly powerful. I was fortunate to be brought around it earlier, and like I say, it's just an incredibly powerful piece of work. I was thinking over the past few days about this, and I reckon it's fair to say that no matter where you go at the moment or who you meet, conversations tend to start, at any rate, in only one way, which is, what do you think is going to happen? Will there be another lockdown, do you think? Or what are they going to do? What are they going to do seems to be the big one. And I suppose for a lot of us, the thought of another lockdown, which hopefully won't happen, or the thought of even any sort of restrictions being tightened again, it's a bit of an inconvenience. It's a bit of a nuisance, or maybe you might have, and I know this is very serious, you might have some concerns about your business or whatever, or maybe your concerns are petty ones about, will I be able to drink until midnight, or will I have to stop at 11 o'clock or whatever. But there are a sizable number of people out there who have spent the past few days thinking about the possibility of being locked up again in a terrible situation. And people who are thinking about themselves and their children, and the thought of everybody being confined to the house again, and of living with someone whose response to a bad situation, or indeed to any sort of situation, is a violent one. And it is hard for most of us to imagine how awful that must be, how terrible it must be, but also how exhausting it must be if that's all that you can think about at the moment. When you're in a situation where your every move is monitored and where you're in constant fear of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or breathing at the wrong time. And when you're constantly having to twist yourself into shapes so as not to offend somebody who would cross the road to be offended. I mean, it really is for most of us. It's just so hard to imagine. There's also that situation, and some of the others touched on this, where despite everything, you have to put the brave face on. When you leave the house, or even if you're not able to leave the house, if you're talking to a friend, talking to a member of the family, everything has to be fine. The kids have to be great. Everything is wonderful. And added to that, and this is something that over the course of the pandemic has become all too obvious, is the extent to which even if you find you can't go on and you can't continue with the way things are, there may not always be sufficient help available. The number of women and children around the country who have sought to leave their house and who know that if they do, there may not be anywhere safe for them to go. It's an unconscionable thought. And in many ways, again, just thinking about this afternoon, it's too soon to write about the impact of the pandemic or to say precisely what it will be. And I was struck, I got the train down, I was at Houston Station, and I was struck by how much most of us have adapted, even in little ways. You know, the obvious manifestation of that is wearing masks, or the way most people give other people a bit more space. But I reckon even at this stage that the one thing that you can say for sure, and that we can say for sure about the events of the past 19-20 months, is that the people who have suffered most are the people who were in the worst situation to begin with. And if you started this pandemic in a bad situation, and I'm thinking obviously in particular today of women and children who are living in fear of domestic violence, the chances are that those are the people for whom life was already a daily challenge, who have lost out most and who have suffered most and who have had the most difficult time over the past few months. It's not just, I suppose, the violence. It's that corrosive form of psychological abuse as well, where nothing is ever good enough and your response is never the right one. And as several of the others have mentioned as well, I think it's so important that we get away from this notion of that domestic violence happens to that kind of woman, those kinds of people. It doesn't. We all know that. We really do. That it can happen in any situation, to any family. It's not connected to how much money you have, although God knows for a lot of people, you know, money worries can add pressures to a house where things are already difficult. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say, I'd like to reiterate what an honour it is to be here, to have seen this exhibition, and I really do wish Clare Haven and all of the people who work for it, and indeed all of the artists as well, the best of luck with everything, and my heartfelt congratulations to you. Thank you.